I'm going to start with Helen Frankenthaler, but before we start, I always love little stories. And the little stories are when I was getting my degree at Hunter in photography and printmaking, I also had a painting teacher and an art history teacher. And my art history teacher was a man by the name of E.C. Goosen, who wrote the big book on Tony Smith, but he also knew all the abstract expressionists. And he said, if you can do an interview of a living artist rather than write a paper on somebody who wasn't alive anymore, you would get an A. So I thought, like, wow. So my mother used to swim at the 92nd Street Y with Helen Frankenthaler. And I said to my mother, Mom, can you ask Helen if I can interview her? And first E.C. Goosen said, I said, I'm going to do Helen Frankenthaler. And he said to me, she'll never give you an interview. You're a college kid. She's just not interested. So I asked my mother, and I don't know if, Jane, did I tell you the story? I might have mentioned the story once, but no. But so I called my mother, and my mother gave me her home number. And I called Helen. I said, hi, I'm Tobi Kahn. I'm a student of E.C. Goosen at Hunter College. She goes, get on with it, get on with it. I said, well, I want to interview you. And she said, I don't do interviews. I said, well, I think you know my mother. Who's your mother? I said, my mother's Ellen Kahn. She goes, oh my God, Ellen told me she had a son who was going to call me. I guess I have to do the interview. So that's how I got the interview. I got an A for the class. I think she's a truly brilliant artist. And she was not always the easiest person, and people knew that about her. But you have to remember, when she was a young woman, it wasn't so easy to be a woman artist. So I want to put that out there. So and some of you have asked me to make sure we had more women artists. So we have a lot of women artists today, but they also happen to be great artists. So we're doing 2 videos of Helen Frankenthaler. She has a show opening tonight at 6 o'clock. I was there today at Gagosian, but she had a beautiful show just recently at MoMA of decades of her work. So now we can see the 2 videos. This is a 1.5 minuter, but I love it, so that's why I'm showing it to you.
I first saw Jackson Pollock's paintings at a show he had at Betty Parsons in the fall of '50. And I think what I particularly responded to was that there was an all at once, overall, this happened quality to it. I had to develop my own technique, but I think technique determines aesthetic as much as one's aesthetic determines a new medium. I don't want a border or line or strip all the way. The making of them, controlling them, and the surprise from them is a gesture that I do best.
I know it was only 1.5 minutes, but I have never seen such a good way of describing how a painting is made. Now, these are from the vaults of the Met. This is another brilliant interview, but very, very different. So this is 4.5 minutes, but you'll see a very different side of her. And this is more who she was, a little tough.
This is a cueing of the interview with Helen Frankenthaler in her studio at 183 East 83rd Street. Let me see. Let's just check it for voice level. Just want to give me your name.
My name is Helen Frankenthaler. Very often people say, did you know when you were a young child that you wanted to be a painter? No, I didn't. It's only when one's intellect in relation to the world develops, you know. There's no other solution.
Perhaps we might talk a bit about the technique in which you paint.
I usually unroll a large roll of unsized, unprimed cotton duck and staple it to the floor so that it's taut, because that gives me more flexibility to make it the size I want it to be. I might roll out more canvas than I thought I would originally. Or the top of the picture might turn out to be the bottom of the picture. What usually happens to me over a year or a year and a half is that I do many, many pictures, destroy many, change my mind about whether I like them or don't like them, let them cook, in effect. Different pictures over a period of time can express different moods, lights, progresses.
By the way, I meant to ask you, is your medium oil or acrylic?
I use what is called for at the moment. It might be my hand, it might be pouring the contents of a glass or a pail or a garbage can. A picture of mine that is hanging in the Met right now was done in '52 with a combination of house paint, enamels, kerosene, turpentine, and maybe student oil paints. Any methods and materials man would drop at that combination. But I think a good picture holds up, and if it weathers, fades, we'll just take it from there.
Many times I've noticed in art schools that many of the most talented students are young women.
There appear to be more women with greater talent, often because women can be more freewheeling and give their energies to what in our still male society might seem poetic or sensitive. But then these talented women are supposed to become wives and mothers, and if you spend too much time in a painting studio, you're not going to reach that goal, probably. You said there are so many outstanding women in the visual arts. There aren't that many, but there aren't that many outstanding male painters either, really. In the past few decades, there's a greater chance for the work of women to be looked at for itself rather than, isn't this remarkable for a woman? I'm not involved in doing good woman's painting. I'm involved in doing good painting. When the picture is standing by itself, signed or unsigned, it has to stand up as that surface, meaningful, failing, succeeding, whatever. And the origins or the sex of it are irrelevant.
So I hope you found that interesting. So you have to remember, this is done over 50 years ago, and this is now 2026. So I just want you to understand that the world has changed drastically from that time. Now, the Helen Frankenthaler Foundation has become a big advocate for women in the arts. But look on the side of this, how many documentaries are on Helen Frankenthaler. So I just want you to know that we picked things that really would resonate with all of you today. So now we'll go to Gagosian, and I hope we can get certain pictures on. So sometimes they don't like putting images on there, but I figured I would show it to you anyway, because I think it's very important if you want to go see the show. But stop right here for a minute. So you see this is oil on linen. Now you realize she did not answer the question, do you use oil or acrylic? Thank you, Jane. I see you shaking your head. That was Helen. She doesn't like answering what she doesn't want. So she started off doing oil painting and then switched to acrylic. And she was a huge influence on two younger artists named Kenneth Noland and Jules Olitsky. And they both started using acrylic because of her. So look at this first one, that's oil. And if you look at this, oh, thanks for putting your arrow. Do me a favor, take your arrow and go around the dark blue on the top right there. So you see that lighter blue around there? That is the oil sucking into the unprimed canvas. Canvas is cotton duct. Linen is linen paint. But you'll see these, and she loved these. And you saw that she said sometimes they fade. Some artists hate that. She apparently didn't mind that. But in the later ones with acrylic, you see around the yellow also, there's a nice little film right there. That is the oil paint seeping into the piece, but over the years it seeped even more. So this is some art that continues to change after it's finished. I don't know if you know her, but she died recently. I loved her work. Pat Steer. Pat Steer and I did a show together at the Albright-Knox, and I remember that she would paint during the day, and when she came back at night, she would drip paint on the wall, and later it would continue dripping. And she said, Toby, when you finish a painting, it's done. And when I finish a painting, it takes another few hours to finish itself. So both of them are artists that like that. Now you see it says 2026 Helen Frankenthaler Foundation, all rights reserved. That means the foundation has total control on all these images, and you have to get permission from the foundation to show the work. Let's go to the next one. So this is 2060. Now look at this 8 years later. Look at this, acrylic on canvas. Look at how different the surfaces are, and look at each of the individual colors. You see how the blues on the left side look very different than the blues on the right side, and look at that beautiful skin color right below there. It's much denser. Would you mind showing them how, bringing your little arrow in there, and you can, thank you, that hand. I love that hand. Go all the way over to the end of right there. You see how much darker it is here? So you saw that sponge that she used, and that's why I showed you that 1.5 minutes. She would take the sponge and leave it there longer, and then on the other one, she'd wipe it. So now you see that she wasn't using a brush on these. I wanted you to see that video so you can see that she used a sponge. The other thing that was fascinating in that video, she was drinking wine while she was painting. And even during my interview with her, she was drinking wine. She was a really uptown East Side woman. Very interesting. So now you can see that. Let's go to the next one. Now that one is really one I adore. And look at the way it's painted. Now look in those yellows. You can see that the yellow, the yellowish orange, and then above it the orange. Look at how there are multi layers of paint in there, and the same thing goes with the purple. So this was not done with one brush stroke or one sponge, but take a look on the left side of the orange on the top. It almost looked like there's an owl in there. You know what I mean? There's a really interesting shape. And that is because she continually reworked each individual shape. And the reason you can do that with acrylic, anyone want to tell me? If you want to guess, you can put it in the chat. I'll use it, wait a second, and then I'll tell you. If you mix oil, and you have to wait till it's totally dry to do that. But if you use acrylic, it dries very quickly, and you can put one layer after another. Jane, you're shaking your head, so you know. One layer after another. Let's go to the next one. Now that one is so breathtaking. That is just a few years later. And here she's starting to play with having little marks that she makes with a brush. You see those beautiful, it looks almost like you're looking out at the ocean and there are little boats in there. It looks like a really beautiful long vista. Look at the bottom where she signs her name. It's right on the bottom, but right underneath there are a few other colors there. And it looks very Eastern. And she was collected by a lot of Japanese collectors. And I understand why, because it feels very Zen, meditative, and Eastern. And you can see there are little like circles in the blues. That is from where she put down the sponge and then she picked it up and it picked up some of the color. I think this is such a beautiful painting. And look, by the time she switches to acrylic, the way she paints is very different. We can go to the next one. This is 81. Now look at how long this is. You remember she said she rolls out a lot of canvas, and the reason it is 4 feet is 48 inches, so she goes almost to the edge. So she just leaves a little space to wrap the painting around the edge. Do you understand what I mean by that? So the canvas, can you do me a favor? Can you go to me for a minute and then I can show them again what I mean? Is it hard to do? Yeah. So if this is the canvas, you can just take a teeny bit and wrap it around the wood and the top of the bottom. So she's painting on the entire surface, and then after she's finished painting it on the floor, she then picks up stretcher bars and wraps it around it. And that's why very often somebody said to me, why didn't she just make it 48 inches? She couldn't, because then you couldn't wrap it around the side. Now we can go back. Thank you. Again, look at her colors. They're very beautiful colors. Let's go to the next one. Now that is so exquisite to me. And you remember she said to me, not to me, to all of us. So this is done on the floor. You see that bottom? That black goes all the way around the bottom. And you see on the top, it goes off the side. So she's very conscious of building a framework around it. And she has learned how to play with acrylic paints and make some of it very opaque and some of it very translucent. Can you zoom in on that purple in the middle? You'll see it's a really, can you make that? Yeah, thank you. Oh, you're such a good person. You see that? You can see how thick the paint is there and there. And now when you blow it up, you'll see the blue is much more transparent. So she plays with depth. You see that? And you see that little, she throws down little drops of paint. And you can see how translucent some of the background is. So that is what people loved about her later on. Some people liked her pure stain paintings. I have to say I like both of them. And I think there's one more. And that's already 1990. And there you look like you're looking through windows or you're looking out at the horizon. And the bottom, many people think, looks like a globe. So she really plays with what space is. And she's using cadmium red, orange. You see those little bits of paint right in the middle? She puts on pure pigment. Most of it is stained, and then she uses pure pigment in a few areas. Anyone have any questions or anything they want to say? I know we took a lot of time, but I thought it was fascinating. Anyone want to ask anything? Put it in the chat. All right, now we're going to go to the next show. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you did. So that's her press release. No, yeah, I always think it's good to have this. You're going to get this. We're sending this to you later. You'll see her press release, and it shows some of the other. Now we're going to one of my favorite artists in the world, Henri Matisse, one of the greatest shows up, and I made sure to get you early on this so that if anyone's in New York, it is considered, the Times wrote it up, this is the strongest show in New York right now. It's on 79th Street at Aquavella Gallery.
What drew me to Matisse is his desire for finding the strongest and most simple way of expressing a form or a character. And also, in terms of color, of mounting the color to the extreme. In March of 1946, I was in the south of France. Pablo Picasso came to meet me there, and he said, I'm going to make you a present. And he knew that the present he could make me would be to meet Matisse, because Matisse was really my god. People always think of rivalry between Picasso and Matisse, but it was mostly a great friendship. Also, Matisse was about 11, 12 years older than Picasso, and he had a kind of kindness to him, because Picasso was always a bad boy, and Matisse was always soothing him. The difference between Matisse and Picasso is Picasso was looking at nothing when he was painting. But Matisse always liked to have a model near him. He could touch the head of the model with his arm. He was living in a little villa called Villa Le Rêve, the Dream, in Vence. And Matisse was in bed. He had had a terrible surgery in 1941, and after that, he was most of the time in bed or on top of his bed. He had also a lot of papers that were drawing paper that were already painted in one color or another, and then with a large pair of scissors. I could never think that you could do something very fine with scissors that were about that big. And while he was talking, he was making arabesque, you know, in the paper. And then he took the little piece and would put it on a different color paper, etc., and finally make something that was like a painting in a sense. You know, there is an anecdote apropos of Matisse and the color black. He decided to go and say hello to Renoir. One of the credos of the Impressionist painters is that you can't use black anymore. So Matisse is bringing a few paintings to him, and of course in them black is used as a color. Renoir was rather astonished and said, "That is very strange. You have to be a painter, because I myself could never make a painting with black not receding, making a hole." From one generation to the other, the universe appears differently.
So the reason I picked this was because, first of all, Frances Gillot, I met late in her life. She moved to San Francisco, La Jolla, California, and I did a home for the former head of Hoffman LaRoche, and the same architect did her home, and I always wanted to meet her. She's not a bad artist at all, and I knew that she would tell great stories, and I love the story she said. He was not a good husband to her, Picasso. I'm sure you all know that, and she left him eventually. But I love that he gave her a present to go meet Matisse. Now, she said that, which was fascinating. They didn't argue with it. They were not enemies. People always said either you like Matisse or you like Picasso. Now, I want to tell you something, that I have many artists who I like, and we're just different. And the reason I'm so excited to show you this show, when you look at this show of Matisse, you can't believe it's the same person who later was ill and was cutting stuff in bed. And you can also see that he loved some of the colors of the Impressionists. And he also loved using fabric and color. And I use these pieces for my students at SVA to teach them about composition. It's one of the most beautiful shows you can see in your life. I hope that some of you can come here and see it, because there are a few things that I love about it. Number one, you know that many of these paintings did not have these frames when they were made. So it was a decision that was made later what the frame should be. Number two, quite a few of them have something called floaters. That inside, like that first one you're seeing, which is so gorgeous, the frame, look at that one. You see that little, oh, thank you. You're so nice to make it bigger. You see there's a little rim around there, and that separates the piece from the painting, and it feels like you're looking into a window. Also, he doesn't cover up all the canvas. Look on the bottom of where the carpet is on the floor, and you see that yellow wall. You can see a little of white that's from the canvas below it. And there are many places that the white is not painted over. So it's a very interesting way of looking at figure painting, and it's also a very interesting way of seeing that what is real and what is not real is treated the same. And what do I mean by that? Some of the fabric looks very flat, and sometimes it looks like one of her feet is coming out of nowhere, her hand is coming out of nowhere. And look at that next one, where you have these beautiful tulips, and then look at the pattern on the wall of like tree parts. So what I love about this so much is that he plays with color, and I love when she giggled when she said he was using black, which is not really a color. I hope you all know that, but you should know white, black, and gray are not colors, they're values, and that's called chromatic color and achromatic color. These are very highly chromatic paintings, and black and white ones would be achromatic. Take a look at the way the flowers in the one on the left are behind and the one on the right. That's why this is such a gorgeous show. On this side, the flowers are in front of you and the drapery is behind you, but the woman lying down is behind the flowers. So you see the way he sets up space. It's not using a lot of shadow. The only shadow you see is underneath that platter. See, there's a little shadow there. Let's go to the next. So I keep going over on that side. Look at these. Oh my God. So again, somebody would say to me, I saw this with a friend of mine, and they said to me, "You think he bought a lot of blue paint that year?" And I said, "That's not straight blue paint. That's a lot of something called ultramarine or cobalt mixed with white. He toned down a lot of the color." So the two over there, but then you get to the one behind the beautiful sculpture. Those are like poppies, I think they're called. They have them. Kalaniot is in Hebrew, and they look like they're popping into the surface. I don't even know what to say. I feel so honored to be taking you to this exhibition. It's one of the most beautiful exhibitions I've ever seen. Also, look at the way they put the figures on pedestals right in front, so you almost feel like you're moving through a home. Let's keep going. Now you see this next one. Now look at what they did so brilliantly. Look at the way, I wish I could have some of you talking to me, but look at the way the one on the left looks much flatter and the one on the right looks much deeper. And you remember that Gillot said that black always recedes. It's not always the case, but in this case, that darker color recedes. And then you see on the top of the table is again some black that has some of the objects on top of it. And also look at the way her feet come through underneath the table, which I think is brilliant. If the table you couldn't see through, it would stop the way you look at the piece. And also look on the back wall on the left side, you see some beautiful little drawings, and it becomes more abstract through the back window. Let's keep going to the next. I think, isn't there another? No, isn't there another? Wait, that's the only image there? I thought we had another image there. Can you go back?
Let me look again. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. That was the only one that I had, but we can try
I
it again.
think the gallery later put up another one. Maybe.
Oh, in the same.
Yeah, look on there. Yeah. Because I got it right when it opened. I think there's another one, but if not, you'll get the press release and you can look at it yourself. It's an
Okay.
amazing show because there's so many spaces in there.
Okay, here we go.
There it is. I knew it was there. Thank you. You're a nice person.
Thank you.
I prepared it, so I knew it was there. So now we can look at these up close. So what's so interesting about this? Anyone want to tell me what's so interesting? Right. You don't see the frames. That's really important. So in the space, you see that, but now you get to see them. Look at that. He sometimes frames hangs it, signs it on the top and sometimes on the bottom, left and right. But look at the way the paint is painted all the way through, and you can see that he didn't clean his brushes every time. It's just beautiful. Let's go to the next one. Now that is one of my favorites. He did a whole series. Anyone remember? Anyone at the Modern? There's a beautiful series on the Modern, in the garden, where he has these four women. They start off being very figurative, and then they turn out being totally abstract. I love that he just plays with you. It's not totally anatomically correct. Her one arm would fall off. In other words, her arm distances would be totally off, but it doesn't matter because you get that feeling of reclining. Do you understand what I mean? Look at her. Can you point to that two arms? The arm, look at how long that one is, almost double the size of the other arm. But it's the way she's sitting and he plays off of that. Let's go to the next one. Oh, that is so famous and that is so beautiful. If you want to feel the lusciousness of women and women's bodies and lying in the sun, you're just coming back from the beach, very relaxed. I mean, beautiful. Just so beautiful. And look at the way he paints the flowers, as important as he does her body. And look at the wallpaper in the back. I love it. And also the little still life of peaches. Let's go to the next one. And that again, you see what I mean? Somebody who sat like that would fall down in 1 minute. And that's what I love that he does. It's so relaxing. And I'm leaning back in my chair right now. If I didn't have a chair behind me, I'd fall off the chair. And he loves doing that. Also, is interesting is he's much more interested in women than men. He doesn't do nearly as many images of that. And it's called bronze with a brown patina. And the way you get a patina is you use something called farric, and you heat it up and it gets it to a brownish color. Let's go to the next. I mean, he's having a party with color. I mean, aren't these, I mean, they're gorgeous. And you can see that he paints, look at the side of the chair, and you can see that he painted the chair there. Would you mind showing them there's a little white coming through with one of the sides of the chairs? Right there. And I think that's fascinating. In other words, and by the shoes also. He doesn't care. He keeps the painting white underneath behind the flowers, also the same thing. He's very into letting you see everything. Let's go to the next. That is the one that's like the one at MoMA. So this is number an edition of 10. And it starts with a woman that you see her body, and the last one is like this, where it becomes totally abstract. I don't even know. These are so beautiful. I hope you're enjoying this because I love it. And it's really like he's drawing on the canvas. It's very thinly done. It doesn't look like there are 10 layers. This is done with 1 layer. Can you do me a big favor? Go back to that first painting in this group and you'll see that it's very thickly painted. I want you to see the difference. Not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one. That one. Do you see how differently it's painted? I just want you to see, and that's why I admire him so much. He goes through periods where he wants to be very opaque, which means you can't see through, and also very translucent when he wants you to be able to see through. Now we'll go all the way back. We're going through it quickly. I just really wanted you to see that. Keep going. Now keep going. Keep going. You know, you're going the other way. You have to use the other arrow. That's it. That's the whole thing. So now we saw all these that they put up on their internet. There are other pieces as well. Now let's go to the next show, whose name is Elizabeth Payton. She was a student at SVA. She and I showed at the same gallery when she was very young, and now she's one of the most famous living artists. And the show she has up right now are very small paintings, but here she is talking.
Well, first, I'm very happy to be in this show. I'm honored to be in the show with these artists. And I think it's a very good time in the world to have a show like this, that not because it's women in particular, but I think a lot of the values that are in the paintings are feminine. And I do feel, especially these last few years, that that's something that's missing in our culture, feminine concerns of compassion, caring, kindness, things like that, you know, things in nature seem missing. So to see a show like this is a joy. I think it's really right on time. Maybe late, but I'm glad we get to see it. Well, I would say in some way Marisol, because I know about her, in the beginning I knew about her through the paintings Manet had made of her. Alice Neal is very inspiring in terms of her character as well, as how she persevered when really nobody was caring what she was doing uptown, but she never stopped. Of course, Cindy Sherman, I grew up in New York looking at her work and admiring her work and all the things she can do with herself as the vehicle, limitless, very, very inspiring. And Frida Kahlo, of course. Taking her personal story and making it about universal truths is something I'm very interested in. And she really shows you a lot about that. I think for me, the portrait, it's a vehicle to see the whole universe. Through a face, I can see everything that exists. And it can be very specific, like what's going on in this time right now. It can be about like the laws of nature and how they work on everything that exists. I think it's a very broad vessel for me. And also, I'm just so fascinated with what people do with themselves and how that might show up on their face.
So that was from a group show. That's from a group show she was in. She was the least famous in the group, and that's why she was so excited to be in it. But this is a beautiful little show, and I'm very impressed with Gagosian. I think there's only one image on here because they're very. This is a David Zwirner, and they don't want people to be able to download the images. So this is a beautiful little show. It's tiny images. There may be, 14 by 20, and the whole gallery. Are there any installation shots? I don't remember if they would let us have any. Let's see. Yeah, there they are. There they are. So now you'll see them. They're very, look how little they are. So when I put this up, Sharon, you see they went up. They wouldn't let us see it. And then I called and you click and you get each one. So let's go to the next one. You can see the figures in there and very loosely painted, but they're all the size of a loose leaf paper. It's a very fascinating installation with a lot of white space. And you see that she's leaving a lot of white of the canvas. She likes to be sparse. And you see that figure leaning back on the head and the hands holding the shoulder. They're very beautifully painted, but she wants to leave very much time for your imagination to like hone in on the pieces. In other words, she's not giving you a lot of information. She really just wants you to look at it and look at it and look at it until you see what you see. And she does a lot of close-ups and a lot of close-ups of her friends. All right, so now you saw that. I'm so curious what you all think of it. I tried to pick very different types of artists. And you see that there's a lot of the canvas that shows through in each one. And remember how small these are. Now, these are watercolors. That's in the back room. And I wanted you to see this in relationship to the Matisse. I'm sure many of you figured that out right away already. But this is looking at like the way Matisse did flowers as well. And that you can see she goes over the paper. You can see on the bottom, there's a line of where the paper ends, and then she has a little more paint on the bottom. Right there. You have that right there. Right there. Yeah. I think the color is very, very rich. Really rich colors. And she lets things drip on the paper. I think the paper pieces look very different to me in person. I don't know if you feel that there too, than the paintings look. Paintings on canvas. And you see they're abstracted, but they're really based on something real. And you see in the background, there are two lovers kissing, and in the foreground is the one person, and he looks kind of serious. And I like the way she puts in a drop of color in the background to just keep you jumping. Many people say she's learned a lot from David Hockney. All right, I think that's the whole show. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I'm watching my time, and now we're going to Leon Kossoff, and that show is going to be up for 3 months. Leon Kossoff, this was a trailer for a film on him, and he's now dead, but he was a very important English artist.
I'm astonished. I never anticipated it. We weren't long in planning. Someone had an idea and then the exhibition grew.
Look at how opaque the paint is, very different than Matisse.
Just enough works were selected, and I'm still bowled over by it.
Leon Kossoff is the preeminent painter in Britain today, and he comes from a period, really, when painting was being examined after the post-war period. And Kossoff, Bacon, Lucian Freud, Frank Auerbach, uniquely in Britain, belonged to a generation that believed in the great continuation of Western painting and tradition, and its renewal, and its survival. So, in answer to the question is, who is Leon Kossoff? I would say he's one of the greatest painters working anywhere in the world today.
Made my studio downstairs, and it's still there. Everything seemed to change. Paintings changed. I went to the swimming pools and drew and painted those. And yet, it was all about space and movement.
You can see that swimming pool in there. It's very abstract.
Every time you look, you see something different. You experience something different. This is where my relationship to my work, that I feel different from a lot of people. I actually experience things different. I once said that every time the model comes, every time someone comes to sit, everything is different. They're different, the light is different, you know, and I can't just... in the end, all the differences amount to a sort of presence. For me, it's a process of going on drawing. Just going on drawing until something happens, and then you realise that you can start painting.
Are there many subjects that you've started drawing then?
Those are the swimming pools again.
Oh yes, there are subjects, yes. Yeah, there are lots of subjects, lots of people, there are lots of everything. But not being able to do it is part of the being able to do it.
But the drawing means that you know something so well in the end, because you paint very, very quickly, don't you?
Very quickly, yeah. The paintings only take a couple of hours.
Isn't that fascinating?
It's astonishing to look at these and believe.
Yeah, well, I was young and strong and desperate.
It's great to see the scale now.
In the process of painting, the marks of people passing me in the crowd or at the station actually become people I know or people that are sitting for me. And not all the time, but many times. Those figures, like the woman leaning on the Times thing, is Peggy, it's my wife. And that's my father coming to sit for me. And that's Fidelma, also coming to sit for me. I saw a long time ago now. How many years, I don't know. I can't help it. The visual seeing things turns me on. That's the only thing I can say. Ask my wife. I go out into the street in the morning and suddenly my mood has changed completely because I see, you know, I don't know, just a few trees. Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed it. I want to ask you all, this is a trailer from a much longer film, but I really want you to tell me if you like the fact that I'm now showing longer videos, because I think it gives you more of an insight on the person. I'm trying to get them to speak when they can. If they're dead, obviously, I can't have them do it. But the reason I wanted to show you Leon Kossoff after Elizabeth Peyton is she paints very quickly, but it's very thin. And I wanted you to see one after the other because he paints very thickly and very thickly and just as quick. So I wanted you to understand this. Now, the gallery did something brilliant. Their show is up for 2.5 months because he's not as famous in America as he is in Europe. And so it opened on April 17th and it closes on June 20th. If you're in New York, it's a gorgeous show to see. There's so many good shows up that are now up for 2 months. So now let's look at the installation, which is very important for you to see. And what they did right away is they're showing you some of the big works. Some of them are framed, some of them are not framed, and they give it quite a lot of space, which I think was a very good thing to do. And they talk about some of them are in the train station. 3 of these are the one all the way to the left, the one next to it, and the one all the way to the right. The other one's in front of a church. So he likes going back and forth. And I love what he said. He does it so quickly that he uses his wife and his friends and his, I think his daughter, he said, and he puts their faces in when he needs a face of a person. I don't know what you guys think. I love them so much. The self-portrait's the first one. And you can see it looks so thick. And you can see he does not clean his brushes because the colors are very similar. So on the top row, that first one is a self-portrait. The second one is you're outside of a building. And then the third one is you're again in the train station. And you see that little train station thing on the top, the circle, the red circle with the blue. It takes a while for your eye to notice things, but once you do, it starts getting more realistic. Now, I'll tell you, the criticizers people feel about him is that they're very dark, but I think that's a taste issue, like very different than Matisse. Matisse puts you in a great mood. These are much more somber, but I think this and Elizabeth Peyton are very similar. I mean, really similar. Let's keep going down. His best friend and his studio mate was Auerbach, Frank Auerbach. And the work is very similar. They also were very close with Francis Bacon. They also were very close with David Hockney and Lucian Freud. They all had a very nice Jewish teacher named named Bloomberg, and they all came out of that school together, and they all went in their own directions. You can tell he was a great teacher because all the work is quite different. Go down to the next row. I love all these portraits. That one all the way on the right reminds me so much of Max Beckmann with the blue and the way the structure is of the building. I love when people shake their heads yes, so that means I'm on the right place. And then all the way to the left, it looks like he's about to get up from his chair. So they're just beautifully painted. I mean, it's such a beautiful show. I don't even know what else to say. I'm hoping you like it. And the one all the way to the right on that row, it becomes very flat because the color is not it doesn't give you any sense of depth or space, and there are no shadows. The woman reclining does give you a feeling of space because of the way it's painted. So I'm hoping you enjoyed this show. I'm watching my clock because I only have 5 minutes, and I want you to see Philip Guston still. Any questions, we'll wait till the end. Now, this is Philip Guston. You know he was born Goldstein. He changed his name because there was so much anti-Semitism. It's 8 minutes. We're not going to see the whole thing because I want to give us time to chat. So let's look at it. Brilliant video. A lot of these
Was
paintings in
there
the
a
background are in the
moment
show.
when you realized, oh, my father kind of is someone different than somebody else's father?
The question would really be, was there ever a moment that I didn't know? I always knew that. My father was the painter Philip Guston, now recognized as one of the great artists of the 20th century. This is my father's studio, built in 1967, after he pretty much withdrew from the art world. This is where all the late figurative works were created. We've kept some of his materials here, his charcoal pencils, quill pens, the Higgins ink that he used. And over here you find huge quantities of his paint. This is his signature color, cadmium red medium. And if you want to know where the Guston pink comes from, it's cadmium red medium and titanium white. It goes on. Look at this. His handling of paint was so masterful. His line, his touch, his brushstroke are completely distinctive. And not many people talk about that because the works themselves, I think, are much more challenging.
He did these when his father died.
We've kept my father's painting wall just as it was, including the drips of paint on the floor that accumulated over time. He constantly questioned whether painting could be the legitimate response to human suffering and cruelty. It was my mother who found this quote from Charles Dickens that expressed the intensity of my father's commitment and how difficult it was for my mother and me to not have more of his attention. Even in the years when I was growing up,
This is a very
the studio
powerful,
was
listen to
always
this.
off limits to me. He needed to go to a place within his psyche that was fully authentic and to have an experience creating. And to have someone in the studio interfered somehow with his engagement with the work that he was creating. Originally, actually, the idea of a not-for-sale collection came from my father. These two drawings illustrate my father's personal collection. And you'll see on the back, in the original frame, it says NFS. That meant not for sale.
All right, we're going to stop it here. You can watch it on your own. We're stopping it here because I don't want to be late and I want to give you time to talk. So this is his whole collection that was given to the Met. And I think it's very interesting. This is the last show. This is Life with P, is a new book that his daughter wrote. She did another book that she wrote when she was much younger, how angry she was at him because he was not an involved father. And since I just became a grandfather, I'm letting you know, I read that book she wrote when I was still single, and I promised myself I would be a very involved father. So, but now she's not bitter anymore. You heard her say that her mother and her both felt they couldn't get a lot of attention because he was in the studio all the time. This is one of the most beautiful shows ever. It's painting and drawings. It's on 18th Street. It's there until July 10th. I hope some people get to see it. So let's look at those quickly. And then I want to have a few questions. I know we have to end soon. So look at these. This is The Broken Heart. These are him and his wife in bed. She was ill for the last years of her life. You see that he mixed that beautiful pink with the red and the white. Most of his colors are what's called tertiary colors. They mix the colors so it's not pure color. Let's keep going down. You look at the paper pieces. I own one of these. I have to be truth in advertising. I own one of these prints of his black and whites that I love. And they're very whimsical. Remember, he fought the main group. Jackson Pollock stopped talking to him when he became more figurative, and the only one who came to his defense was Rothko. I think it's because the two of them were Jews. The rest of them really said, how can you go back to figuration when abstraction is so important? And that's one of the reasons he moved to Woodstock. He couldn't deal with the fact that he was shunned by so many artists because he was starting to show realistic work. Let's keep going down a little more. Those are the bricks. Those are beautiful too. I want to show you one more that he did when his father died. He had a whole show at the Jewish Museum after his father died, and he did all black and white paintings. It's a beautiful, look at the armchair. He uses the same pieces. Keep going down. I want to show you one, installation views. There it is. You see that that gray one on the other side? He did a whole show of those after his father died at the Jewish Museum. I'd love to answer any questions or hear anything. I know we're late, but I really would love it. I hope I did a good job. Please let me know if you were happy. Anyone have anything? Was it too quick? Are we doing okay?
We're doing great. We've got questions.
Oh, good. I love questions.
Yeah, so first of all, there are questions coming in about artists that influenced other artists that you showed today. So one question was about Marc Chagall and how he was influenced by Matisse specifically.
Totally. I don't know who asked that question, but very true. Similar times, but Chagall loved the colors of Matisse. But yes, the difference is Chagall was much more of a storyteller, and Matisse was much more of a space. You look at a room, and he liked women. But if you look at Chagall's work, there are always narratives of leaving the text where he came from, and he was much more of a narrative storyteller. And the colors were a little. There's a lot more happening in the paintings.
Okay, so we had in the video for Leon Kossoff, we had the curator, I think, saying
Yes.
that he was the best artist working in Britain.
That is so funny. Who asked that question? I love you.
Well, me and also someone in the chat, but like, what makes him the best?
He's not.
Great. Okay.
He's not. Now, it's so fun. That's why I want the conversation at the end. The person doing the show always says that. I told the director of the museum I'm having a show in November, and she said to me, how can I describe you? And I said, as an artist. She goes, well, aren't you considered one of the best of the X or Y? And I go, no, there is no such thing. So the truth is, there is no best of anything. And if there was a best, it wouldn't have been him. It would have been, he was group of five. David Hockney was more famous. Lucian Freud was more famous. And Francis Bacon. There were five of them. So he's not the most, but she felt that very strongly. She gave him the show at the museum, so she wanted to say that. So I think that's very important, who says what.
Yeah, especially you're talking about he wasn't the most famous. So correct me if I'm wrong, but all the people that you showed today were famous in their own lifetime, correct?
Oh, I love you for asking. Yes, but different levels of greatness. The one who's become much more famous since his death is Philip Guston. Philip Guston has gone meshuggah since his death. I mean, meshuggah. And the reason is so many young artists love him, and so many young artists love the fact that he didn't care. He started out as a figurative painter, became abstract, and then went back to figuration. He was shunned by the big names. And then he moved out of town and moved to Woodstock because he couldn't stand that people made fun of him. Like, why are you going back to figuration if abstraction is everything? And I love that about him. And so many young artists love that he followed his dream and didn't care what everybody else said.
Yeah, how does it play a factor in what we know now, or how much they were able to create, that they were famous in their own lifetimes? And
no, they were famous.
But I mean, they had access. They had, the means to create more than maybe someone who was not well known. So does that affect how much we know about these artists today?
Well, that's a good questions. So let me explain something important. I want to see if you can raise your hands, so the people that I can't see everyone's faces. How many of you know who Jackson Pollock is? Right? I see everyone's hands up. Right. How many of you know who I also love? I'll get his name in a minute. I'm so sorry. Sharon, what's his name? The one who does the beautiful realistic stuff. Edward Hopper. How many of you know Edward Hopper? All right. Do you know that they were painting at exactly the same time? Mm. Do you know that at the time that Pollock was doing his big paintings, nobody cared about him? I'm going to give you a great story that I heard at a Friday night dinner of Jan Kruger, who was a very famous art dealer. And I went to a dinner party because he liked my work, and we were sitting there with his print dealer. And I said, Jan, tell me a story that I don't know. Now, Jan Kruger was famous for being Picasso's dealer. I don't know if any of you know that. He had a very famous dealer in Switzerland. He had a place in New York. And he goes, well, I'll tell you a great story. The story is, I had a very good year in the late 50s, and I asked all my artists in Paris, which American artist do you want to meet? And I was hoping they would say Jackson Pollock. And then I could call up Jackson Pollock and said, all my artists want to meet you and come to Paris. And unanimously, they wanted to see Edward Hopper. And he was so, I mean, I don't know if this is all true. In fact, I met someone in his family. I met somebody who worked at the gallery last week at the Met. And she used to work there, and she's a good friend of Anna Heller. So it's so funny how life continues. So I said to her, this is the story I heard. So she said, well, you know, Jan Kruger loved making up things also. So you don't necessarily know. So I said, well, he told me that he then bought a lot of paper pieces by Hopper because they were very inexpensive then, because nobody was really taking him seriously. And he later thanked those artists because he owned so many pieces by that. And she said to me, well, I know for a fact he did own a lot of them, but I didn't know that how it happened. So here's an example that at one time, more people were interested in Jackson Pollock and they weren't that interested. And now it doesn't matter. You can like one and you can like the other, and you don't have to compare them to each other. I just went to give a lecture at the Whitney to see the Whitney Biennial, and you walk into the third floor and you see all different American artists. And there's the very famous piece by the flag painting by Jasper Johns, right next to 3 paintings by Hopper. And it looks great. So, you know, that is something important, that you have to live long and you got to make art long enough that things fall into place. Is it easier to be well known in your life? Yes, it is.
Yes.
I could not have a studio like I did if I didn't sell. But again, I'm happy that I'm not that that famous that I can't go out the door and be harassed. So, you know, they're all different levels of being known. Any other questions?
Yes. So you said that he was shunned because abstraction is everything.
Then.
At the time.
Yes.
Why?
Very good question. God, I love these questions. The reason was, you have to understand what happened. This is right after World War II, and America, and in particular New York, becomes the center of the art world. You know that. Everyone knows that after Hitler did a terrible thing to the Jews and did a terrible thing to the world, but he made the New York art world. I mean, he did, because everyone had to leave, and people left from everywhere. Also, not only Jews, but Black Mountain College, which I'm so excited to be going to do a lecture there at the museum. Joseph Albers and Ruth Sauer. There were all these people that moved, had to come to America. They left everything, and it became the center. And all of a sudden, the new language was abstraction. You know, people get stuck on things for a while. Just like right now, gender has a lot to do with things, and people for otherness has a lot to do with things. They're always fads. Everything is cyclical. I always tell my students, yesterday was my last day of painting, my painting class. I taught with them for a year, and I said to them, don't follow trends, because within 5 years, the fish is old. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to change. Everything's going to change. You do what you believe in, you do as best as you can, and you pray to God that it'll work out. So that is really what I believe in. But there are periods of time when minimalism was the whole thing, and then there was pop art. You know, did I show you guys or somebody else Roy Lichtenstein was made fun of because at that time nobody wanted to see pop art. So what I try and do in this class, and I hope you enjoyed it, is show you as much diversity as possible. I try and pick the best shows that are up at a given time. I hope you enjoy the gallery tours. Just make sure there's left room in the slot for gallery tours. Thank you all very much. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as much. Bye.